In this tutorial, we'll be looking at a chicken picking solo that's made up of 4 riffs, and we'll learn them in A blues, but then we'll also look at how to play them in G and D and E, and hopefully by the end of the tutorial, you'll know how to play these riffs in any key that you need to play them in. We'll do the same thing with the rhythm guitar part, which is kind of this country blues or blues shuffle rhythm. We'll learn it in A blues, but then we'll also talk about how we can play it in any key, and we'll actually show you the tabs, and we'll learn it in D, G, and E as well. In this first video, we're going to look at all of these riffs in A blues. And then in the next video, we're going to switch them all into the other keys and hopefully be able to figure out how to play these riffs in any key. So in A blues, we're going to talk through these 4 riffs that make up this whole solo nice and slow. For tone, I've got some slapback delay, a little bit of reverb, some kind of natural tube sounding overdrive, just, you know, a good amount, not a ton, just a good amount, and then some compression. This is all tabbed out beneath the video player at sixstringcountry.com, so pull those up, that will help a lot. And let's just dive in and learn these things. Here's riff 1, looks like this. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, so before we get going here, this is important because we're gonna relate this back to how to find out how to play this in any key. We're in A blues, right? So think of this A bar chord. This is also where our kind of go-to box shape of the pentatonic, the minor pentatonic box shape. So A minor pentatonic is right here, right? We're gonna be basing most of these riffs right around this box shape. So for A blues, we wanna play A minor pentatonic. If you learned the minor pentatonic scale set, this would be position 1. If you learned the C major, if you learned pentatonic scales with the major pentatonic, then this would be considered position 5. Either way, this is A minor pentatonic, or A blues. All right, so this first riff, we're gonna start here on the 7th fret of B with a half bend, and then cluck with the 3rd finger on our right hand, this 5th fret of high E. We got that pointer finger back there, right? And when we're clucking, we really want to get the string, we're kind of right here on my finger. You can almost see the string indent there. Right about there on your finger, and you want to pop it to give it that kind of chicken picking clucking sound. Okay, then we come back down on B, pull off to 5, then 7 of G, then cluck the 5th fret of B, and now a full bend on the G string, 7th fret, 5th fret, excuse me, of high E with a cluck, come back down on G, pull off to 5, and 2 picks on the 7th fret of D. Then at the end there, we're just going 7 of D, 5 of G with a quarter bend, and 7 of D again, and cutting it off. So 2, 3, that whole riff, 4. Okay, let's move on to riff 2. This one looks like this. All right, so we got a similar position here, 7th fret of the high E string this time with a little half bend. We're gonna cluck these first couple all with clucks. Then we'll switch to our pick. Okay, so we've got 7th fret, high E, back down, 5 of high E, 5 of B, then 8 to 10 on the B string, then another hammer on from 8 to 10, and then a quick slide from 9 to 7 to 5 pull off of G, and then 7 of D, and then 5 to 6 on that G string. Okay? And then this is kind of a classic chicken picking move here. So get that 3rd finger on the 7th fret of D, and then we're gonna pick that, roll it back to 7 and 7 on G and B, and cluck both of those, and then 5, 5. So we're clucking 5 and 5 of G and B and hammering on real quick to the 6th fret of G. So the whole thing, 2, 3, 4. And then we quick cut it off, just mute it. You can mute it with your fingers on your right hand, or just let your fingers on your left hand come up off the strings. So they're touching the strings, but the strings aren't touching the frets anymore. Okay, then this next riff goes from the 5 chord to the 4 chord when the rhythm guitar is going. And we're playing. All right, so we're going to slide in from 7 to 9 on that G string, and then cluck the 7, 8, 9 on B, back down, 8, 7, then pick the 9th fret of G, 7, reach that third finger down, the ring finger on your left hand, to the 8th fret of G. And then that same finger slide in to the 7th fret of G. Pick it one more time. 5th fret of B. And then with your middle finger on your left hand, slide into the 6th fret of G, and then 2 picks on the 7th fret. Okay, so that one more time is 2. 1, 2, 3, and. And the 4th riff is simple. We've already done it before, basically. All right, so it's 7 on D string. Roll it over to 7 of G and B. Cluck that. And then 5 and 5. Hammer on to 6 of G. And then 7th fret of A. That's kind of the turnaround riff. So let's do 3 and 4 together here. 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and. One, 2, 3, and 4. And that's all the riffs. So these riffs strung together will get you through a whole pass of the 12-bar blues in this kind of blues shuffle style. The chords that we use are all 1s, 4s, and 5s. In the key of A, that's A is the 1, D is the 4, and E is the 5. It's a combination of those chords. And we're always going to use 1, 4, 5 chords as we go through these different keys. We're going to drill down on that big time in the rhythm lesson, so make sure you hit that too. But this next tutorial, we're going to take these riffs and we're going to learn them in G, then D, then E, and at the end, hopefully, you'll be able to play these riffs in any key because we're just going to relate it back to this scale. So let's turn on the metronome and play through the riffs with just the guitar and the metronome one time before we move on. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, we've learned these riffs in A blues. Now we're going to talk about how to play these same riffs in G blues, D blues, and E blues. Those four combined are probably the 4 most common keys that us guitar players play this kind of music in. But certainly not the only keys, which is why hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to play this in any key that you want. So we talked about in the A blues tutorial a little bit that these riffs are based around a scale. They're kind of based around this position. Well, if you're talking about the minor pentatonic, position 1 minor pentatonic, or if you're talking about the major pentatonic numbering, it would be position 5, box shape. But either way, we're in A blues, so we're going to play A minor pentatonic, right? And these riffs lay out nicely for us to transition keys with because it's really easy to find this scale because you can just think of this bar chord, right? You can just think of this A bar chord and then you already have your positioning for A minor pentatonic. So when we do, you can kind of see how it's based on kind of a combination of this A bar chord and this scale that we just talked about, right? So let me demonstrate the riffs in G blues. Or G minor pentatonic, right? So that would be here. All right, there's no point in us going over this fret by fret, note by note like we did in A blues because what I just did there was literally just dropping everything down 2 frets, the entire solo down 2 frets. And it's helpful if we can start thinking about things like this, because how many frets down is a G chord from this A chord right here, this A bar chord? It's just down 2 frets. That's also called a whole step. It's down 1 whole step. So we can play that same solo if someone goes, you know what, I don't want to play that in A blues, let's play it in G blues. Well, you could take everything you've learned in A blues, drop it down 2 frets, and be in the right key. And again, it's helpful if we can relate what we're doing back to some of these positions and these scales that we've learned, just because it gives us some mental shortcuts when we're thinking about it. So visually and mentally, I'm going to start thinking about these shapes and these positions. And that way, when I want to take what we did in A blues and move it down to G blues, it's real easy because I'm just relating it all back to what we did in A blues, but I'm just dropping it down 2 frets. Okay, and the same thing when we get up to this riff 3. All right, that's following this chord chart here. This is getting a little bit more advanced, but the chords are, for that section, D to C. And what's a D? Here's a D bar chord, here's a D7 to the C7, right? So you can see how this kind of always is following the chords in the progression. So one more time, nice and slow, in the G blues. We've got a 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we've got G blues down now. What about D blues? If someone said, okay, let's play just D blues, and you wanted to pull out some of these riffs and be jamming in D blues, how would you find that? So let's keep it around this shape, this bar chord shape that we've talked about here to get started. Where would we find a D bar chord? If this is an A and this is a G would be up here, right? So then where would the D minor pentatonic box shape that we've been using, where would that be? It would start right here on the same note. So already I'm knowing I've already got these shapes in my mind that easily let me get a frame of reference for moving and shifting these riffs. Same thing with, we've got, if you're doing 1, 4, 5s for that riff 3, you've got the 5 chord here, the 4 chord here, so 5 chords here, right? This is a nice shape for us. 4 chords here, and we're back to that D. Right, so we've got the box shape, and we've got the chord there to know minor pentatonic, and we're gonna play these riffs. I'll play them nice and slow here and demonstrate, but again, it's the exact same finger movements, we're just moving it up. We're going up 5 frets there, starting on this 5th fret to this 10th fret. Here's how it looks: 2, 3, 4. All right, so there's D. The final one would be E. And when we're looking at this in E, we have options, because you can think about this bar chord shape, but really that shape is the exact same as this, right? So you could play it here. It's a little tougher down here, way down on the neck with some of these bends. Whereas you could do it up here. So if you're just getting started, I'd recommend probably playing what we're going to talk about here up on the 12th fret. It's just a little easier to bend the strings, but it can sound really cool down here, right by the nut of the guitar too. But let's do it up here, okay? So we've got our bar chord shape. We're using this same shape we used all the way up and down the neck for the bar chord to figure this out. We're finding an E bar chord. Someone says, let's play E blues. We're finding this E bar chord with the root on this low E string. And then we're also, since we're already there, we know where our minor pentatonic is for E blues or E minor pentatonic. So we've got a good frame of reference. To shift these riffs around. So let's play through this one nice and slow. again, all this is tabbed out, of course, but this is more just to kind of start these mental shortcuts happening in our minds a little bit more. So we've got, starting here on the 14th fret now, because again, we're playing the exact same finger positions. Instead of starting down here, we're just starting up here. It looks like this, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully this is starting to click to how we can play these riffs in any key, and it doesn't have to be just the keys we talked about either, because, I mean, say someone wanted to play in B flat. You can find a B flat bar chord here. If they're playing blues, well, we can play those same riffs in B flat just by identifying, okay, here's my bar chord shape, here's my minor pentatonic, so we can go. Okay, and so you can do that in any key by, again, tracing it back to that starting position and relating it back to the scale and the chords. In this tutorial, we're going to talk through the rhythm part, this country blues shuffle in A. We're going to get our fingers on everything and really learn it. And then in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how we can switch this around and really play this style in any key that we want. So let's just get our fingers on this to start here. It looks like this. All right, so we're going to start by just getting this open A string and then the second fret of D and G. And let's just start there for just a second, and we have to realize that this is a swung rhythm. It's not straight. Straight would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we're playing this swung. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The subtleties of this style really all just have to do with getting that swing feeling right and the muting. So even what I was just doing. You never want to let this note ring out too long. It's not, well, it could be if you wanted it to, but you probably more want. All right, it's a lot of this muting with also the left hand. We're letting it for just a second, then lifting up just a little bit so that this left finger is touching the strings, but the notes aren't ringing out anymore. And then also these other fingers. When I'm doing that mute, my middle finger is really covering that A string just a little bit, right? And also my right hand palm is kind of bouncing up and down off the strings just a little bit. It's just something you got to mess around with a ton, and eventually you're going to get it feeling good for you. And even if you just want to play it no mutes, at first, that's totally acceptable, and then eventually, let's try to get it to feel like this. So we're just doing this alternating up and down in this swung feel. Back to the tabs here, we've got open A string, then 2 and 2 on D and G. And then we've got 3rd fret, 4th fret of A, then 2nd, then this kind of, again, it's kind of half muted A note here, open A string, and then 4th fret of D, same thing on the A string. Then we're going to go up to a D chord, and it's the same as this D chord, but we're really only playing at the most D, G, and B strings, but probably just D and G. But the same rhythm, same upstroke, downstroke, so from the tab on that D7, 3, 4, and then 2 of G, mute, 4, mute, and then back to the A, just like we learned. But we're going to add something on there. So we do the first part the same. Now we're going to the 2nd fret of G, mute, 4th fret of D, mute, 2, mute, 4. All right, so far we have this, 3, 4. All right, and then we've got a D chord. It's the same thing that we learned on that first D7. We're just going to play it twice. Back to the A with the extension. Now, a very similar thing on an E chord as we're doing on the A. It's just open low E string, 2nd fret of A and D, and then 3, 4, 2, mute, 4. So, and then over to a D. Then to the A, and then really you just need to find an E7. You could go and 7, 6, 7, 5, or you could just even play. The rhythm is kind of what you want to get there, and mute up, mute up. And that's the rhythm part in A. So we've heard it slow. We've heard it with the jam along, but I'm going to turn on the metronome so we can hear it with just the guitar and the click. And then in the next tutorial, we'll talk about shifting this around to some other keys. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. All right, now just like we did with the riffs, we're gonna take a minute and talk about how to play this kind of blues shuffle rhythm pattern in any key that we want to. And we're gonna get a little bit heavier into the theory here of the progression that we're using. In A, we had A's, D's, and E's, 1, 4, 5 in the key of A, right? So if we move it to a different key like G, we're gonna have those same intervals. We're still gonna have 1s, 4s, and 5s that we're gonna be basing these chords around. But we need to figure out how to do those walk-ups in different keys when we don't have the luxury of the open strings. Right? In G, we're going to need to start on G chords, obviously. We're going to have, if we're looking for 1s and 4s and 5s, G's, C's, and D's. So I'll just play it for you now. If you want to play it the same way, the same kind of feeling rhythm, it would be... This is C, back to G, to the 5 of D, to C, G, big 5 chord. Okay, so what we're doing is we're just replicating on a G. So let's look at these steps, all related to the A note here. We have a flat third, a natural third, a 5th, and a 6th. So root, flat third, natural third, 5th, 6th. So we just need to find those same intervals on G. We have root, flat third, natural third, 5th, 6th. And the same thing if we start on a C note. And you'll notice that the movements are really the same. We're just starting on a different note. Back to the G. Now we need this octave to do the same riff we did before. The muting's the same too. It's actually easier when we're not dealing with the open strings. Back to the C. And the G. Now when the progression goes to the 5 chord, like right here, we need to start in the key of G. The 5 is a D, so let's find a D note, which is right here. Back to the 4, which is a C, and the G. Now, to end on a 5 note, instead of an E like we had in the key of A blues, we need a D chord. So we'll play the same shape, and end from there. And this same principle is going to work with all these different keys, but we just need to be flexible enough to bounce around a little bit. So in the key of D, when D is the 1, if we're playing in D blues, right? If we're in D blues, D is the 1. So we need to do these same movements, these same rhythms, these same mutes and everything, but D needs to be the 1 now. And in the key of D, D is the 1, 4 is the G chord, and 5 is an A chord. So we're going to start on the D. Now let's find the G. You could do it right here. But usually with rhythm, you want to kind of stay low if you can, so we're going to go down here. Okay, so far we have the D to the G, to the G, and back to the D with the extension. Back to the G, into the D with the extension. Now the A. And again, this is an A note, right? So if we base it on this A note, we're going to be able to find the right pattern here. To the G, back to the D. And what's a 5 chord in the key of D? An A7. And that would be how you play it in D. We're going to have a similar thing in E here, okay? But with E, we're going back to some open strings. So think about how we did it in A. We caught some of these open strings when we could. And then we caught some of these power chords when we could. So for E, let's get our fingers on this. Open, 2, 2. But it's the same rhythm, the same muting, and the same pattern. To the A, we already know this one. Back to the E. Because in the key of E, the E is the 1, the A is the 4, and the B is the 5, right? So we start on an E, go to the 4 chord, which is an A, then back to the E chord, which is a 1, and the extension, to the A chord, one more time, E chord. Now we need the 5 chord. In the key of E, what's the 5 chord? That's a B chord. And so the B, we don't have the open string luxury, because we can't do that because then we need this finger right away over here. So we're just going to do it like we were doing D's and G's and A's. Sorry, yeah. So that's for the B. We just do then back to the A and the E. And then in the key of E, the 5 chord is a B, so we just need to find a big fat B7 bar chord here. And that is how we can play this in any key. So we know how to do it with open strings. Oh, sorry, with open strings, it's. We know how to do it when we don't have open strings. So all it is from there is finding the starting note. Say you're playing in, someone for some reason wants to play in B flat blues. Well, we can just like we did in G, let's just start on a B flat. We know the intervals, we know the rhythm, and we're going to play 1, 4s, and 5s. 4, 1, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1, 5 chord. All right, so we just played that blues shuffle in B flat. So we can play that anywhere we want because we know where to start, and we know it's just 1s, 4s, and 5s. We know the rhythm, we know that it's swung, we know how to mute it, and we know how to do it with open strings or without open strings. So that's basically it. So let's turn on the metronome and I'll go through all the different keys with just the guitar and the click. We'll go A, then G, then D, then E. 1, 2, 3, go.